Have you ever had that moment where, like, everything that you thought you believed suddenly feels like really, really shaky? You know, maybe there's like just this world event that happens, or maybe a life experience, or like this question somebody asks you, or some proof, and suddenly it doesn't line up with what you think, and then the doubts start tumbling in. And if that's you, then you're not alone. In fact, if you doubt, then congratulations, you're a normal human being. Because, I mean, I've coached hundreds of people on their faith journey, and what, like, most people don't realise is doubt is not only normal, but actually it's essential, and you find that even in the Bible. I mean, doubt itself isn't the problem. The problem's like what we do with it. And so many people like get the wrong idea that faith and doubt are enemies. That if you've got doubts, that means, well, your faith is really weak, isn't it? So, but I want to show you how doubt isn't actually the enemy of faith. That doubt can be the route to a deeper faith, like more authentic faith. But that's like only if you handle it in a certain way. That doubt can be really dangerous. I'll be honest with you about that. So let me just show you in this video 3 practical ways of actually how to handle doubt properly so that it leads to a more fruitful faith. But before we get to that, we need to nail what I call the myth of certainty. Like, somewhere along the line, we've like picked up this idea that faith is about being like certain. That faith, you know, if you're a person of faith, if you're a person with a strong faith, that means you have this like rock solid confidence, unshakable, that you never question, you never wonder, you never wrestle with anything, you just like accept stuff. But that's not how life works, is it? I mean, you question some of your decisions. Sometimes you question where you live. Maybe you question some of your friends. You question what your job is. We question things all the time. It's just like a natural part of processing and checking things out. It's kind of normal. So why wouldn't faith be any different? Because here's the thing, like, the faith and doubt are not opposites. Yeah, they can coexist, and I'll show you how in a minute. That actually faith does have an opposite, and it's not doubt. Actually, faith has 2 opposites, and one of those opposites is fear. That fear is the opposite of faith. I mean, you think about the heroes of faith, you know, think about like Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King or some of the characters you read about in the Bible, yeah? And they weren't people who had it all figured out. They wrestled and they questioned, and some of their diaries, maybe someone like Mother Teresa, you know, she shares deeply in a diary that she wrestled with doubt and she's questioning God all the time, but she moves forward. And like when God speaks in the Bible, often to people, he doesn't say like, don't doubt. He says, just don't be afraid. Yeah, because faith isn't about eliminating doubt. Faith is about trusting God in the middle of our questions and the things that we were wrestling with. And like another opposite of faith, when you think about it, is indifference, isn't it? About not caring. The fact that you're doubting means we want truth, and we want what's real, and we want to wrestle with it, and we don't want to live a fake life. We matter. What life's really about matters, and it's important to us, and that means like we're engaged. It's indifference is maybe the opposite of it. But doubt can be dangerous. Yeah, I don't want to encourage like all doubt, and there is a kind of doubt that's healthy, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and I'll talk about 3 ways that we can process our doubt. But I just want to say, like, there is a doubt that turns into cynicism that is really damaging for us as individuals and the communities that we're part of. It's a doubt that stops asking what's true, and a doubt that's not open. It's kind of closed minds. It already knows what's true, and it's not opening to questions, and it just dismisses us. And certainly here in the UK, in the West, a lot, I think, we elevate cynics and anyone who trusts and believes in all sorts of areas. We think they're naive. So like we can be cynical about government, you know, even football managers and leaders and policies and decisions. It's easy to pull down and be cynical and criticism. That's not going to work. We don't trust that. We don't believe in that. As a kind of snide way to promote and pretend that we've got this intelligence and we're smarter than anybody else. And I think that sort of doubt can be unhealthy. And being a cynic can be smart, but it really just leads to living a smaller life. And it's easy to imagine like God is ashamed of our doubts, that he only wants to welcome those with unquestioning faith. But there's a story of Jesus which actually totally disproves the opposite. And Jesus resurrected, and he'd appeared to all his disciples except one, and they'd seen him, and they went to tell Thomas, who wasn't there, and they said, Thomas, wow, we've seen Jesus. You know, he said he's been raised from the dead, and he has risen from the dead. We've seen it. And Thomas is like, really? You know, I'm not really sure. And Thomas has had this experience where Jesus said, listen, I'm going to rise from the dead. Jesus did all sorts of crazy miracles which showed that he was a significant person. You know, he'd rose Lazarus from the dead, he'd walked on water, he'd fed 5,000, he'd done all sorts of crazy stuff. And then his best mates who he knew and trusted all said, we've seen him rise from the dead. And Thomas is still like, I'm not sure that's enough. And they're like, well, what other evidence do you want? And he's like, actually, I don't even want to just see him, because he could be a ghost. What I want is to actually touch him and put my hands where his wounds are to prove he was on the cross. If I can have that, then I'm going to believe. And like, what does Jesus do in response to that level of questioning, that level of doubt, that level of challenge? Jesus appears to him and he says, okay, Thomas, let's do it. He said to Thomas, go on then, you can touch me, touch my wounds. And that's like really interesting. Even though Thomas had nearly all the evidence he needs, he had eyewitness accounts, he had Jesus predicting it was going to happen, he had like Jesus miracles to prove that actually he was going to be somebody, he is somebody with lots of power, but it like wasn't enough. He wanted more. And Jesus' response to his questions, God's response to his wondering, his wrestling, is come on, let's wrestle. Let's question. Let's get to what is true. Let's get to what is real. He doesn't push him away. He embraces it. And that's what God says to us. I mean, this isn't encouraging cynicism, but it's encouraging questioning and wrestling and struggle and think, I'm not sure, is that really true? Does that really work? What about this? What about that? So if Jesus rewards deep seeking, then that suggests doubt isn't the problem. So the key is what we do with our doubt. So he's 3 ways to handle doubt in a way that's life-giving. So the first thing we do is that we are honest about it, that we don't suppress it, we don't deny it, we don't pretend. I know sometimes we can be surrounded by people where questioning isn't encouraged, but God doesn't take that approach at all, you know. And faith is not about suppressing questions, it's about bringing them into the light. And it's interesting to read a lot of the Psalms, particularly those written by David, who's called a man after God's own heart. And he's always wrestling with God, he's always arguing, he's always bringing what he feels into it and being honest about it. And like, that's what we're encouraged to do. But the key is we have to seek truth, not like try and destroy it. We've got to seek it. So be honest about them, bring it to God, journal, or say like whatever you want, whatever you feel, just be real about it. The second key is this, that don't wrestle alone. To keep your doubting and your searching healthy, bring your doubts to the right place. Bring them into community. So Thomas was honest with the other disciples. He shared with them that he was struggling, that he was wrestling with, you know, Jesus really resurrected? Is that sort of thing that happened? You know, he did it with a community of faith. So ask your questions, but seek wise counsel. Seek those people you can trust. That's a safe place to allow you to express. And I know that not all people accept that. You know, some people get threatened if our foundations are shaky or if we just want to explore. So go with people that you trust. Because doubt grows in isolation. You know, when we keep our questions inside and we're not honest about it, they become secrets. That's where they fester and they become bigger than they actually are. So find safe people, people who won't shame you, but people who let you just explore and express. And then the last thing is about, remember that faith is trust, not certainty. Yeah, so we're not seeking is certainty, because you'll never get that. What we're seeking is enough information that we can trust. And that means, and this is a big one, we need to be willing to doubt our doubts. Yeah, that if we're waiting until we get 100% proof and certainty, then actually we're never going to move forward. Faith is like stepping forward when we don't have all the answers, but we trust the one who does. I mean, that's what makes it faith. So don't be afraid of your doubts, but see it as an invitation to wrestle, to bring them to God, to be honest about it, and find a safe place. It's an invitation to ask a bigger question, because that's how we get a real, a deep, authentic place. And if faith for you feels like a bit of a winter at the moment, it's a bit of a dark place, it's a bit cold, and you're wondering what to do about that, then you might want to watch this video next, because I just give you 5 ideas of what to do when you're going through a spiritual winter that I'm sure you'll find really helpful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next video. Bye bye.